Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's body image and fitness coach. Today, I've got the lovely Cassie. Cassie is a multifaceted woman, and I can't wait for you all to listen to today's podcast, because Cassie's coaching and business is all about helping women become their strongest selves, create a life of freedom, and unlocking their potential. Now, she helps women to pretty much say goodbye to overtraining, to undereating, and helping them to change their mindset around themselves and their health. And that's what we're all about with the Women's Fitness Academy. We're here to empower women to create that life of freedom, of unlocking that true potential, because as women, we tend to hold ourselves back from doing that. And we tend to self-doubt our abilities. And Cassie is your woman for today to help you to unlock all of that. So, girl, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be having this conversation.
Me too. So let's fucking dive in straight away, because before we started recording, we were talking about imposter syndrome. And this is something that is so freaking common amongst women. What is your relationship with imposter syndrome?
So my relationship with imposter syndrome, something I really struggled with at the beginning of my fitness journey. So I've been on Instagram for quite a while now, and as Instagram's been a while for a very long time, I guess I just got into starting posting my fitness journey and whatnot. But like I tried to have this perfect picture of health, and like I was going to the gym and doing all these things, but on weekends and like in social life, I really was living that double life. I was not really valuing my health as I was putting out to the world. And I actually felt ashamed of that. And I was actually really scared to show up online and post more, because I really wanted to put my name out there. But there was something like deep inside of me is like, you aren't actually this, because I'm out there drinking, like binge eating. And I was just too afraid to talk about it, because I guess back then on Instagram, it was very like picture perfect. There was so many other fitness girls who were, look like they were living like the perfect life as well. So that's kind of my relationship with imposter syndrome. I really struggle with that. And it's just like, I guess it's something that women struggle with when you're trying to be something you're not. And that's when it really starts to seep in. So I really had to take a look at my values, the way I was actually leading my life with congruency as well, to really make sure that I wasn't feeling it as much. And especially now that I've got my business, really have to make sure I'm really leading my life by example, so that way I don't feel like an imposter when I do show up, so I can actually show up more often, because that was the one block that I definitely had with that.
I love that you mentioned that you felt, well, you did kind of live like a double life, telling people how to do one thing, but we were doing the complete opposite.
Yeah.
During that time, like, what was life like for you?
So life for me, like, was basically going to the gym 5, sometimes 6 days a week. Like, I guess I was all or nothing as well. That's something I really struggled with. So I was going to the gym like a lot through the week, through Monday to Friday. Like typical, I was eating like anywhere from like 17 to 1900 calories. I never really calculated it myself. I didn't have a coach or anything. I was just going from what I seen on Instagram and stuff. And like all that is great, but I was consistently trying to do that and to diet, even though looking back, I was actually pretty thin. And then on the weekends, I grew up in a small rural town, and I guess in those sort of cultures and like towns, there's a lot of drinking. There's a massive drinking culture because there isn't a lot to do. So it's kind of ingrained to you from a young age, like watching your parents drink as well, your siblings drink, and then you go to school, high school, and then everyone's having these parties. So for me, that was kind of a way to socialize as well. So, but I would obviously binge drink, so I could never just stop at like 1 or 2 and have a good time. to socialize, I would have to have more to feel more confident around people as well. So at the gym, I was getting more confident, but then I'd still have to drink and binge on the weekends to even connect with people as well. So yeah, that was basically like my double life. That's how it felt like. It felt very isolating as well. And I didn't have any other friends in my town either that were on the same fitness journey. So it was kind of like if I was to just do all that as well, I would be isolated and not have any friends. So I guess Instagram was good in that way because I did meet a few girls, but it's not the same as hanging out with someone in person. So if I stopped drinking completely and partying and being very social, then I would have been very isolated. So I guess a part of me didn't want to let go of that part of myself as well. So yeah, I was trying to like live this double life. And yeah, it just made it really hard to show up on socials. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to grow my socials, but that was blocking me because I just felt like I couldn't, because someone was going to catch me out and then it was going to expose me to the whole entire world, and then I was going to be done. Pretty much.
I can so relate to that because many years ago, when I just started my fitness journey, I was in a similar position with you, where on weekends I would just chronically binge eat. Like whatever I saw, I would fucking eat. But with my clients, I'd be like, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to do X, Y, and Z. And like yourself, it's like living this double life where I wasn't showing up on socials because I was ashamed. I was feeling guilty of what I was doing, yet I was telling other people to do it differently. So it's just like, it's not really aligned with the values. I'm not actually helping myself nor my clients. So it's so relatable to be wanting to let go of your old self for your future self, but staying in that same position, in that same situation, for some sick reason, we get this pleasure from being in this pain. And people don't realize how hard it is to break that pattern because subconsciously you're so used to it. You're doing it over and over and over again. So your mind doesn't know any different. So when you're trying to teach it something different and new, it like freaks out. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, what? Like how, and again, that goes with our clients as well.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's funny you say that too, because like if you're binge eating and you're telling your clients to obviously not do that, but you're out here doing it every weekend. It's easier to tell someone else to not do that because as long as we're telling someone else to not do that and we're helping someone else with the exact same issue, we don't actually have to look at ourselves and then take responsibility how we're actually doing it too. So that's so interesting.
It is. And you know what? That's the beauty about having a coach. Coaches needed coaches to be put in our place as well. And I don't know about you, but at that time, I didn't have someone to help me. I was literally just doing my own thing. So I didn't know I was deservicing my clients, but also my own values and beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And binge eating is very tricky too, because it is very like emotional based as well. So, and then you feel so much shame and guilt and you feel like you're the only one that's actually doing it. So everyone's too scared to open up about it. But I do think that's slowly changing now. I do see a lot of girls starting to open up about it. There's definitely a lot more education around it now than there was when I was actually doing it. And just learning like the mindset that goes behind it, how it is emotional and how actually when you do it, you are meeting that need that isn't getting met somewhere else, which is quite interesting as well.
Yeah, 100%. So going back in the day, before we started recording, we were actually talking about how you used to binge drink as well and use of drugs and how it actually was sabotaging you from achieving your results. What was that relationship like?
So yeah, that was a very toxic relationship I struggled with for years. Like again, I was stuck in that drinking culture and thought it was my only way to really connect with people because I am such an introvert by heart. And like, I wouldn't say I find it hard to connect with people. I just found it a bit easier. I've always been a bit like on the reserve side. So I just use that as a way to, I guess, connect with people. And I guess I was really I was struggling with my self-worth as well, but I didn't actually like know it. I did go through like a lot of boy issues and stuff throughout the years, and I had that pattern of attracting unavailable people due to my low self-worth, which I didn't know at the time. But now looking back, I can realize that. And I guess a way to like cope with that and give myself comfort, I would drink on the weekends and then do drugs, because like nothing was really comforting me, and I felt shit about myself. And also like my life was boring as well in Broken Hill. So like I needed something to like actually give me feeling as well as numb. So it was like kind of doing the both. I was feeling something finally, but then I was numbing out from all the other stuff. And in relation to health and fitness, like that's obviously going to sabotage me from getting my results, because I don't believe that you can be fully balanced if you're out there having too much of something. So from Monday to Friday, I was trying to diet, obviously, and then on the weekends, I didn't give a shit. I would go out and drink. Something would happen in my week, then like go do drugs. I'd literally go on long weekends with all my friends, drive to Adelaide, because it's only like a couple hours away. Literally have like a 3-day bender, be at like Red Square till like 6 a.m. The sun's up. And if anyone knows the being at the clubs and sun's up, it's very disgusting. Would hate to go through that again. I'm never ever doing that again. But yeah, I just suffered with it for so long. And like you said, it's just one of those patterns that I was stuck in. And I had so many subconscious limiting beliefs behind it. And I think at my core, I didn't think that I was worthy and felt good enough just with people in general, or even boys. So that just kind of like leaked out into my life, and I could never quite get to my health and fitness goals. So yeah, it was such a struggle. I was going to the gym very like all the time, I was very consistent with that, but the eating and just the over consumption of calories and drugs just was like outweighing it. So fitness was here, and then everything else was up here. So yeah, it was such a struggle.
I can so relate to that. Like while listening to you, I'm just reflecting back about my early 20s, and I swear now that I'm just recollecting on this, I'm like, maybe I was a binge eater and a drinker as well, and a drug eater. I'm like, wow, like that is crazy, because literally, I don't know if our listeners can relate to it, but I'm relating to your story so closely because I'm an introvert myself, and being around a lot of people just gets way too much.
Yeah.
But then when you're out and about, the only thing that's going to ease your mind is, well, at the time was the drug use, the alcohol, because that's going to like elevate your mood a little bit. But we don't realize how significantly it did affect us.
Yeah. And just by doing that as well and having that belief, drinking and doing the drugs to seem more confident is actually just reaffirming that core belief that you're not enough without these substances. So it was just a never-ending cycle of me reaffirming everything, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get out of it. So yeah, I wasn't taking the actual steps and doing the hard work to get out of that. I mean, I eventually did, but I couldn't put a finger on how I actually did it. I think I just got sick of my own shit, and just changed my environment as well, because all that kind of stopped when I moved from Broken Hill to Adelaide and got out of that environment. Wasn't hanging out with friends that only wanted to drink all the time. So that was a big one. Because yeah, I did have so many friends playing AFL and stuff, and the only time we'd hang out is when we drink. I didn't really have many friends to go have coffee with. So I guess just making those hard changes and like, I don't want to live this life anymore. Picking up my shit, moving, and then just gaining new friends. And of course, still love my old friends as well, and like my life back there, but it's just not me anymore. That's the old identity gone.
That was going to be my next question to you, going like, when was that time where you're just like, and you're like, I'm fucking tired of my shit, Cassie, like come on, change needs to happen. But you literally just mentioned that, because once you moved to Adelaide and you started, finding new people or just changing the environment, I find is a huge one, because I can so relate to that, because in my early 20s, I was in a group where they were constantly just partying and big party goers. So you don't know any different. You just do the same and follow the crowd. And, when we're young, sometimes we're fucking dumb. We don't realize the stuff we do. We just go with the flow. And especially at a young age, we just want to be accepted. To be honest, like as humans, we just want to be accepted and be part of something, because, it feels good for us. But then when we're trying to overcome those older habits and create new ones, finding new environments or finding new friends is very difficult, and not many people speak about that.
Yeah, 100%. Finding new friends is definitely a lot harder as an adult as well, especially because everyone's so busy. When you're at school, it's just like, I just remember hanging out with my best friend like nearly every day.
All
And like,
day.
yeah, all day,
Okay.
every day. And she even left school and I was still seeing her every day. And she was like, why could you leave me in year 12 with all these other people? But yeah, and it's just all about like changing your identity as well, which can be quite hard if that's who you think you are. And your ego is trying to stop you from changing because it wants to be that person. It wants to stay like to stay familiar. So I guess like changing like small things, like changing your environment's a big one, but yeah, changing small things or just taking like that fucking full leap of faith if you deep down know it's the thing that's going to change everything. So moving to Adelaide was that big one for me. I still did struggle a little bit with going out and a little bit of like overeating. But I think to an extent I was probably underfueling myself as well in the beginning because I was trying to cut. And again, run into like a few boy issues as well. So that made me feel a bit shit. So still didn't have those coping strategies in 2021 that was. So like last year. And then just like changing friends and then just like not going out as much and just being stuck into work. But because I didn't do that anymore, I really became a workaholic. Started working at Right Away Gym and then got a job at F45. So I was working like 2 jobs. I would start like 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then have a bit of a break, then go to Right Away 2 to 10 some days. And then still working out 5 times a week, trying to diet. Like it was just so much. So I went from one extreme to overworking myself because I definitely think I was avoiding feeling what I needed to like feel basically, and that was like the rejection and just like the low worthiness. And here I was pretending like I was this boss bitch, this healthy person, but yeah, I really wasn't. And yeah, just honestly like just had to work myself out of that slowly. And it doesn't seem like you're changing day by day, but once you look back months afterwards, you've actually changed a lot. So yeah.
I appreciate you opening about that because I think a lot of our listeners can relate to this by overcompensating certain areas of their lives because they're avoiding the feelings or avoiding the hard talk that they need to have them with themselves to be like, all right, let's sit the fuck down and stop avoiding what's actually going inside of us right now. Because I wouldn't say it's not so much like an addiction, but like again we get obsessive with something. So whether it's the binge eating, whether it's the alcohol use, whether it's the drug use, and moving from a different environment to a new one, like you said, you started overtraining, you started overworking. So it's a different way of addiction by keeping yourself busy and not letting yourself the time to sit down and be like, all right, let's reflect, like what's actually going on here. So when you noticed these patterns, how did you manage to break them?
I honestly think it was just like education and just, I wouldn't say willpower, but I definitely just stopped going out and I took myself out of that diet as well, trying to need to be thinner as well and like toned and be good enough. But I think this year was the year that I've definitely noticed everything. I just, had more education, listened to podcasts. I invested in a mindset coach as well, which has been a really big one for me, listening to audiobooks all about like subconscious mind, limiting beliefs. And since realizing that, I'm like, wow, I have so many patterns running, especially looking at your inner child as well. That's a big one for me. I've been a very reactive person, like outbursts, too scared to show emotion because I've been punished for it in the past. Like just looking at all that and I'm like, wow, that really plays into the way that I was reacting in, I guess, in romantic relationships as well, and like attracting those unavailable people because, like, what's the word? I just needed that, like that love and affection because I wasn't actually getting that at home but then I really underneath all that, I was the emotional unavailable one because I couldn't open up. So it was kind of like, it was a mirror of me.
100%.
I hated it. But I loved the chaos and the victimhood because that's like what it was when I was growing up. Although I have a beautiful family, they're still married, but just very heated. We're very fiery and just like thinking that's my normal, but it's really not. So my body didn't understand like what it was to be safe in those like quieter times. I just needed chaos, and that literally leaked out into every area of my life, with the partying, drinking, overworking, overtraining. Yeah, because I needed chaos. I didn't know how to sit still. I thought there was something wrong. But yeah.
Girl, you're literally explaining my fucking life right now.
Literally.
You know, like we love our families, we love our parents, we love our siblings, and you know what? They were doing their best with what they had.
100%.
And we're doing our best with what we fucking have. But right now we have this flora of information of doing inner child work, doing inner teenage work, whatever work that we're doing. And we're realizing these old patterns weren't serving us. And this is why we were so fucked up. This is why we were, but it's so relatable, because we were having these patterns with, like, you know, binge eating, the overtraining, attracting unemotional, available men, because we're the fucking drama. We were the drama, and we obviously didn't realize that. But what a beautiful thing it is right now to look back and go, cool, it was a really dysregulated environment, but I've learned so much from it, where now I can actually teach women how to do it differently. Like, I think that's just a fucking blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Exactly. And like, since learning all this too, that's definitely something I want to incorporate into my coaching, is like the whole mindset side, because I do think it is a big factor with health, like with fitness and nutrition. Like, your mindset, like, literally is everything. If that's not sorted, it's going to link out and sabotage your fitness goals, your nutrition goals. Like, you just need to get that in order. So I'm really grateful that I stepped into like learning about this space. Always feel like there's definitely more to go, but I'm keen to introduce that into my coaching soon, which I will be. So very excited for that.
I love that. Mindset work is, it needs to be done more in the industry. You know, as we go with our own journey, we're realizing that it's not just about nutrition and training. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think, like, with the personal development world and the mindset, like, it's only just started getting popular as well. Like, there wasn't much about that like a couple of years ago at all. Like, I didn't know what beliefs were, or a belief system. I knew values, but I didn't know how anything tied into anything. So really just looking at like my past and how it got me to this point, it's really big. So I can't wait to teach my clients. And yeah, I mean, the work's always there as well. Like, there definitely is this love and light, and in traditional like therapy as well, there's not much like inner child work. They don't really go into the past and like the spiritual side as such. It's more very like behavioral focused. So it's good to like get into actual inner child healing, and like even shadow work as well. Like, I'm still learning about that. It's pretty hectic, but yeah, it's very, very confronting, but in a good way. It's like, I'm suffering, but this is good.
I was going to say, shadow work is very confronting.
Yeah. I'm like revisiting. I invested in a course that was like literally an immersion of it. And like, it is a lot at first. And like I was that person, like, oh, like my ego was definitely trying to protect me. Like, oh, I can't see anything. Like I don't know like what's there. But I'm sitting in down and doing it for the second time, because obviously there's replays, and like I'm looking and it's all making sense now, and I'm like, fuck, all right, cool, definitely have some work to do. But even times where I do notice that shadow like come out, I don't like shame myself for it. Really important to know, like, it's like, just don't shame yourself for it, how to integrate it properly, and just have compassion for yourself when you do fall from grace, because obviously I'm trying to like not be as reactive, but the times that I'm trying not to shame myself for it. Like, I'm still human, and it's going to take a long time for me to get out of that reactivity pattern as well.
It's so true. For those who don't know what shadow work is, I'm sure many of us would have heard about what inner child work is, you know, tapping into that inner child of you, which wherever age gap it was. But shadow work is meaning pretty much like tapping into your unconscious mind to uncover parts of yourself that you repress and you hide from yourself. So as Cassie was saying, like, your ego wants to fucking protect you when you start practicing and doing all of this work, because it gets really uncomfortable, especially, you know, from our background of binge eating, of drug use. sometimes we don't want to uncover the truth and we try and repress it. So when the truth is revealed, you're like, whoa, like this is a lot to handle. So yeah, for any of those who are interested in doing that, it takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Patience as well. And like, I feel like it's just never ending. Like there's always going to be something there, as well. So that's been very interesting, to see. But yeah, no, really, really keen to get further stuck into it.
I love that. It will be so good for you. I've dabbled into it like little bits in here, and I've read a few books around it. And some of the practices and exercises are just they're mind blowing when you start dabbing into it a little bit deeper. But I still want us to talk about the mindset side of things because this is on the topic of it. So we're talking about, your ways of overcoming imposter syndrome, the self doubt, but you also mentioned about that all or nothing mentality and how you found this balance for you. What did it look like back then to what it looks like for you right now?
Yeah. So back then, obviously, it was very all or nothing. I think it came down to a lack of education around health and fitness. Obviously, not getting a coach and just going off information on Instagram. Obviously, it's a lot better now. But yeah, like I just thought I had to be doing the most to get results. And I think it came down to like a piece of perfectionism as well, thinking that I needed to be perfect and I needed this to work out like 100% to even make progress and to even feel good enough about myself as well. And I would definitely get anxious, like if I was going to miss a day of training or I had something on like unexpectedly, I would actually get anxious and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm going to lose all my progress. And even family dinners, which is a sad one. I've spoke to someone about this, but like we used to have a lot of family dinners, like my grandparents and mum and dad and all that. So I would actually say no to going to the pub with them because I was too scared of the calories and I didn't really know how to like incorporate eating out into my diet. And because I was on such low calories as well, it kind of makes it a lot harder. So I kind of regret that now because my pub has since passed. So looking back, I'm like, wow, I actually missed out on a lot of opportunities to actually connect, and that created a lot of disconnection from me and my family as well, just by not by worrying too much about myself, the way I looked and my progress, that I forgot about everyone else, which is probably a very, very selfish thing to look back on. But yeah, so and now like I'm very balanced, I guess, because I've worked on my mindset and I know that like I have evidence that going to the gym 4 times a week and like eating at maintenance, and when I got a coach as well to take me through maintenance, I guess it provided evidence to know that it was safe to be at that way. Like I wasn't just gonna blow up, die 10 kilos, and not that that's a bad thing, but obviously girls have this belief that they need to be smaller in order to get love and affection. So that was a big fear for me. I thought smaller was better. But yeah, I wanted to grow muscle and I was always dieting. I didn't quite understand in my head that like it just was not working. So yeah, I did actually invest in a coach and she took me for the first process. And I had this moment where I was like, well, I mean, dieting hasn't been working for me. I haven't been consistent. Like, how about we just try something different? And I was like shitting bricks going into it. But we started slow and slowly increased, and yeah, my confidence changed. I felt more fueled and was back to just strength training, like 5 times a week. And I don't think I was tracking steps back then, which is wild. But yeah, just my body changed drastically, and that kind of gave me the balance and the realization that actually, eating more safe, and I didn't need to be like doing the most and like cutting all the time, and that like I was actually good enough the way I am while still improving on myself. Obviously I'm not with my coach anymore. Like I just coach myself. I feel like I'm very experienced now. But yeah, no, I'm very balanced, and I took myself through a bulk not long ago, which I think further healed my relationship with food. I feel like when you're always dieting, there's always some sort of part of restriction there. Like, of course there is, you got to make sacrifices, but that just further like healed my relationship with food, because I was on such high calories. I actually didn't track most days because I knew that I was gonna be fine. And yeah, so now I'm very balanced 4 times a week now. I can't do 5 days a week of weight training. I used to, but like just owning your own business and stuff, like health and fitness was my whole entire life because that's all I had and that was my whole identity. Now, I guess new experiences and moving and stuff, I now have more responsibility with other things, and I'm not just like this fitness girl anymore. I have a business. I'm like a girlfriend now. So like, yeah, it's just all changed, and it's good not revolving your life around it, because like that can be taken away from you as well. So it's good to have your hand in like different pies as well.
Hashtag growth.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I actually held a masterclass of my journey like literally last week. So it's crazy that that when I got your email, I was like, wow, okay, this is a really time to use my voice and talk about my journey, because like looking back at it, I'm like, fuck, I've actually come so far. And I'm sure a lot of other girls will resonate with this too, like in the industry, especially coaches, especially if they've been in the game for a while. Everyone starts somewhere though.
100%. I love that. I need to make two comments. The first one, I love the Aussie language because you mentioned shitting bricks.
Yeah, bogan at heart.
And I fucking love it. So obviously Australians will relate to this, but any of our international listeners, that is a very slang way of Aussies.
I love
Oh my
it.
God, I love it. And then the second point was the fact that you were stuck in this mindset that you were constantly dieting, but you were wanting to build muscle. I can relate to this. I'm sure our listeners can relate to this, with this idea that yes, we can diet, but then we're going to build muscle. It's just like, no, it literally does not work this way.
Especially when you've been trying for so long and you're just like binging on the weekends. It's like I probably could have made progress with been getting leaner, but I just was not consistent because it was so low. But yeah, I do see it commonly now. Like there's still a lot of girls out there that do need education around it. And it kind of makes me sad as well, because I just remember being in that spot and just knowing how hard it was, and I was never satisfied with my body. And obviously like I have a deep appreciation for my body now. There's always some things to improve, but back then it was just like always trying to get smaller. And I just definitely think that's down to like social media and probably their beliefs as well, the way it's been conditioned into them as like a young age, whether they've seen other girls get shamed for being bigger or too muscular, or their parents like making comments as well at a young age. So that's definitely got a lot to do with it as well.
So true. So true. I love the fact that we've covered so much today around mindset, especially because like, you know, like you said, mindset is everything. It's something that needs to be worked on every day. And you know what? I'm going to speak truthfully. There's some days where I catch myself and going like, why am I reverting back to my old habits? Like, for example, I think it was last week or the week before, I weigh my rice to cook for my meal prep, and the scales died. And my old self would have absolutely cracked it. I reckon I would have had a hissy fit. But then my new self is just like, oh, cool, whatever. Like it died. Big whoop. I'll just grab a couple of scales. I'll measure it differently. So it just shows you how far you've come in your journey, where you start adapting to your new ways instead of freaking out going about, oh my God, but the scales, like, what am I going to do now?
Exactly. And like with the scales too, if you've been tracking for so long too, and like you'd be able to look at a piece of food and almost like roughly know how much it is. So I think that's why tracking is very important. Although I do know some girls intuitive eat, I think at the start of your journey, it's good to dabble in some sort of tracking just so you have an idea of like how much food, how much protein you should be having, and what does the food actually look like. So then you can get to that place where you no longer have to track, which is something I'm actually personally trying to work on. Obviously, I'm in fat loss phase now, so I do believe in tracking very consistently when you're in a fat loss phase. Obviously, there's room for like errors, but when I go back to maintenance, I do want to practice more on track days, because I do find sometimes I like, even though I've come so far, that's still sort of my safety net in some sort of way of control, because I've lived so long like that. So definitely something I need to work on is starting to include some untracked days, and not being so scared of it.
I love that. And it's something that I incorporate with my clients, whether it's like once a week or every fortnight, for them to just get used to that idea, where eventually they take tracking away completely and they don't even think about tracking anymore. It just comes to them so naturally.
Yeah. And it's so much energy to track too. Like even if it doesn't take long, it's still you're still like using that energy to put it in. So imagine like all the energy could be used to do something else as well.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like calorie counting is not good or bad. It just depends on the situation where you're at with your journey.
100%, 100%. And I have seen a lot of people like say like it's very toxic, and I'm like, well, that depends on the person, because tracking macros was a good one for me because it actually stopped me from clean eating all the time, because I thought that was the only way to lose weight at the very, very beginning. And then obviously back then I'd like binge out on junk food and feel bad about it because I thought I couldn't actually have that in my actual diet. So tracking was actually changed the game for me. But I know some other girls it can be very triggering. So I guess everyone's different in that way.
Yeah, exactly. It just depends on the individual and their history. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Cassie, thank you so much for joining me. Today's conversation has been so fucking good, I swear.
Yeah, we've covered so much ground.
I know. We covered so much. Like every time I've been on with has like blown my mind, or I get to reflect back on my older habits and be like, oh, what do I need to fucking work on right now?
Literally, it makes you reflect. So that's why I love podcasts as well. And just hearing other people's opinions. Like, of course, there's an extent to where, you know, you should stay true and true in what you think, but it's good to get other people's perspectives as well and have these conversations.
Yeah, that's where growth comes from. It's not just listening to one person, it's listening to a flora of different people.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So good. Well, before we head off, where can our listeners and followers find you?
So, obvious one, Instagram, at Cassie with 2 E's at the end, which is so annoying. Someone else took my full name. But yeah, Cassie with 2 E's, Sanderson. And that's pretty much it. I think I'm only going to use Instagram. I do have TikTok too. I think it's Cassie_Sanderson, but I need to get back on the TikTok game. I just find it like, it's because it's all videos. I don't really take many videos as well. So I need to get on there.
It's another world, TikTok. I tell you why. It's another fucking world.
Oh, I think that place needs more education than anything, especially
100%. It does. There's enough dancing on there. We need to like teach them a few things.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it. Awesome, girls. Well, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag Cassie, tag myself. And then till next time, be open to doing the work and making changes with your lives.